Welcome to Blue Monday. Amazingly, we're recording on a Monday this week. I am joined by Dave Downey, live from Las Vegas. Dave, how are you getting on?
I'm all right, mate, yeah. We were just talking beforehand how I think we're way behind in terms of Wi-Fi over back home here, because like you're saying, it's proper HD, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks
Over
really
here,
good.
like, but yeah, it's stunning. It's far too hot though. It's about 38 degrees outside, but
What time is it there? 8 o'clock in the morning?
just after 8 o'clock in the morning, yeah, which is, what are we, 8 hours behind you guys?
Yeah.
So you guys, I'm talking like I'm Rob Vader already. It's a big, you guys, honestly, it's amazing how quick you change your accent as soon as you come on here. You know what I mean? And every time you say, "Can I have?" and they'll always say, "You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome."
Yeah.
Not that we live in the place that's really antisocial, but not every time you go to the boozer, they're saying, "You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome." They just get on with it, don't they? So
Yeah.
it's funny, like how the culture of different countries, despite the fact we all speak the same language, I always find me really interesting. Same when I went to Australia. Everybody's like, you can all talk, there's no different language, but these still, the ways of life is completely
It's still
different.
very different. Yeah. I don't think there's anyone in the world who can swear better than an Australian.
Oh, no.
They just do it
It's
so
the way
well.
it is, though. The
Yeah.
accents. If someone was angry with me and swore at me in Australia, I just couldn't stop laughing at them. Do you know what I mean? Fuck off, mate. No, listen, you're like, mate, what are you talking about there? Ryan Reynolds won't like this, really.
He won't. But yeah, he's a great swearer himself. Not that he swears that often, but he is. Right, we'll just get into it quickly. We're going to talk mainly about the game of the weekend and the sort of fallouts with the Everton Twitter accounts of the weekend, which is mad. Just before we do, though, a couple of news bits that affect Everton, or well, could have affected Everton. The first one, Josimar, that Twitter account that seems to know loads about 777. I said 777 Partners has collapsed, leaving behind 7 football clubs in a desperate financial position with insurmountable debts. Will anyone be able to acquire it? Well, will anyone acquire any of these clubs? Dodged a massive bullet there. It makes you think, what the hell was Mashiri doing? Unless in a financial masterstroke, he just strung them along to get some money out of them to keep us going, knowing that they'd never be able to buy us. We'll probably never know, but we've dodged a massive bullet there, haven't we?
Yeah, it felt to me, reap what you sow, isn't it, with this young Cowboys, really. In fact, when we immediately started finding out, because we dug quite deeply about that sort of story, didn't we, with our friend over at the New York Times, and I'll always stick in my mind when he said that he did a bit of work with them over in Miami, and the offices they had in Miami there went a week without electricity. So I think
it's not a good sign, that is it.
Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall there in terms of what they were going to do if they went and got us. But
yeah,
I do wonder, like, they must have been really close to getting us less than that. If they did, we'd probably be down by now, you would think, or certainly in like serious, more financial troubles than we have been in.
Yeah.
But also the news today as well makes me think that we did massively well staying up with the point deductions. I mean, I've always banged on about things would be completely different anyway if we didn't have them. But the fact that we would have had that level of change with these in charge makes me think that we'd be in so much more of an issue than we are now. And lo and behold, look, we're on the verge of getting some owners who look like they know how to do it with the football club. I think you're right that sort of comes to the fore. What you think Mashiri was actually doing? Was he doing it for help financially, or was he doing it because he just basically he's had enough and he wants out? I'd actually go towards the latter, because it seems to me he doesn't really give a shit who comes and takes over Everton. He just wants his money and he wants to go. Because everyone so far, I've not heard any hesitance from him to want us to go to anybody. The American guy, MSP, 777, now our prospective new ones, you don't hear a word from him. He's worried about it. He's like, just give me a check, I'm off.
Yeah, go
Yeah, so I think hopefully we've struck lucky with that, when the sort of thing you wouldn't have expected Everton to do. But due diligence looks all right, and not heard anything bad coming from them. One thing that interests me is they came back in, because one question I'd ask is why, and the second would be, what did you see the first time that put you off so much? And I don't know, maybe it's the lad from Palace, Texter, who came in and they've then been able to say, oh, do you know what? It's not actually what we thought it would be. Everton are actually a good proposition to go and get.
Well, apparently this is what they did at Roma, though, as well. I think it's his thing. Goes in, says, well, nah, I'm not interested. Leaves them hanging for a bit, comes in with a lower offer and they accept it. So
just dips the toe into the water first, see what it's like, and then
yeah, sort of call on the bluff, essentially, I think. So hopefully all that will go through as soon as possible. In other news as well, Man City defeat the Premier League in legal challenge over rules about inflated sponsor deals. So this is outside of the 115 charges they've got going against them. But basically, and I think this would have impacted us with the USM stuff. So when we got a lot of money for the USM training ground, and we got a lot of money for the first dibs on the naming rights from USM, the Premier League were looking around that and similar deals for like Man City when they got naming rights to say, if you've got like a partner, they can't just give you a shitload of money that seems unreasonably high to name the stadium or to name the training ground. So apparently it's been found that rule from the Premier League is illegal. So that's going to get dropped, which I think is great news for Newcastle and Man City. Not brilliant news for the rest of the league, if I'm honest. I think Arsenal, Liverpool and United were heavily backing the counter case against Man City in this for obvious reasons. Weirdly, Everton and West Ham and Chelsea, which you can see why Chelsea, but Everton and West Ham backed Man City for some reason. It could have big implications for the coming seasons, that couldn't it? I mean, you could just see it. It could take out any sort of semblance of competition in the Premier League now quite easily.
Yeah, well, I think in regards to what we saw with the point deductions and what we saw with Forest, I remember talking to Patrick Rizzi about this. He was saying the most important thing out of it all that comes out of it in the wash is the fact that precedents are getting set now. So when you've got clubs making the exact sort of things, or at whatever scale it is, that everybody's able then to say, well, there's Manchester City, look what's happened to them, and use that as where they end up with a structure of which way in which they take cases. I mean, do you know what, Les? It's quite depressing as a football fan that we're hearing all this stuff all the time. And look, it's gone back many, many years, hasn't it? I always refer back to when Abramovich came over, everything appeared to change then, because it felt like it was relatively, I'd say loosely, all the clubs in the Premier League were quite close in regards to finances. I know Manchester United have always been regarded as the richest club in the world. That's what happened in the 90s. But that wasn't to the extent that Chelsea came to, was it? And coming to this, though, it does make me smile, a bit of a wry smile at Everton. I like back City. Man City, our mates. There's not wrong with Manchester City. We'll back them. I think Forest are the other ones, or Forest, it feels like Forest have abstained or something like that. And yeah, it's a strange one with West Ham and stuff, but taking the Everton hat off, and I was getting slated for this, which I'm sure we'll go into, about it not being a penalty with Calvert-Lewin's out in the box.
Oh, definitely was good.
I've been getting, if you listen to me in more than on post-match, people have sent some threats and all that, which I'm going back to the old time in Twitter where I'm used to getting that sort of thing. But here, they've got away with a lot again. It feels like this the second time, isn't it, where they've effectively won what they've been charged with. I mean, they must have some level of solicitors. That's one thing, isn't it?
They've not got Super Silk, have they?
I was going to say, mate, if you're getting a divorce, you want one of those lads on your side, don't you? certainly not against you. Look, if you take your Everton hat off this, Everton backing them and all that, which is a laugh, it's funny because top of that list who want them to be given the full book right against them would be Liverpool.
Yeah.
And that's why it's relatively quite funny for us. But again, it's that way precedent that's getting set here. And reading a few pieces before we started here, people are saying, well, this is just going to open. It's going to be open season now for everybody who wants to create revenue. You look at Newcastle, how quickly they were able to be given revenue in inverted commas. Look at Chelsea selling a hotel. You look at Chelsea when they sign players with 8-year contracts, so it lowers the amount of money that they're paying out on a player because it's gone over such a long-term fee. It's it's not good for the game of football if we're honest about it.
Not at all. I think this is where like proper structured rules need to come in around payments to players and things like that. Not just punitive measures to say, if your football club's overspent by this, we're going to dock you points for this. A set of rules that, I can't ever see it happening because football's a global and at least a European game. You've got to have the same rules Europe-wide because so many players go between clubs in Europe. I'm basically talking about a salary cap. And I think that, if clubs can now just go and get an astronomical amount of money for a sponsorship deal, they can plough that into the playing staff to make them a better team, and then no one can compete with that. But if you did have a wage cap, it levels the playing field a little bit. There's ways around it, obviously. Players will get sponsorship deals and there'll be win bonuses and things like that. But there are ways around it to keep it slightly competitive. Because if the way it goes, it won't be. So instead of just bringing in these convoluted rules by saying, you can spend this much in a 3-year rolling period and all that shite, the main way the money goes out is on players, and it shouldn't be like that. It should go into the run of the business of the clubs. It should go down the football pyramid right to grassroots to keep the game and the club sustainable.
Yeah.
The way to do that would be to say, well, you could only spend like this much on each player, as in wages wise. Transfer fees are another matter entirely. And there should be a cap on them, and then you work down from whatever you think a player valuation should be from the top level. But yeah, it does feel like this could make it completely non-competitive, couldn't it?
The level of purity that you've just spoken of there in the how succinctly explained it in 60 seconds is the thing that will never exist again. We'll never see that sort of thing in our time unless you get a complete clean slate for everything in the game. That language you've spoken about there is old school that many people won't understand. Really, younger fans won't understand it because I go back to it as well. If you go back to the mid-noughties, when things started to change to this level, we didn't really think it'd go to the extent that it has now and to the scale it's at now financially. But that's when things changed. And I always used to refer to it as when we went to the Champions League, when we finished 4th, got the game against Villarreal. And in that summer, after we finished 4th, to where we got the Villarreal game, I kept on referring to that summer. Everton have missed the boat here because I can't remember. I think we signed one player. Was getting out Yobo permanently. I think might have been. That summer was where I've always thought, you know what, in the sliding doors moments, if Everton had gone out there, or Bill Kenwright just threw everything he had at Everton, then you're looking at us getting into the Champions League, and that's when things change.
Yeah, it was.
It's a promised land, isn't it? These days, is it as important as it used to be financially? I'm not so sure because of everything you referred to that goes in and around it now. And I think, again, in that saying that I used there, in terms of missing the boat, ironically, it's felt that way with Mashiri, because when Mashiri came in, let's be honest, how positive we all were. Not long after that came the new stadium. It was Everton's time again. It was Everton's going to do this, Everton's going to do that. Lo and behold, we went and cocked it up, not for financial reasons, but the fact that we just spent it like, dickheads in it, like kids in a sweet shop. And then lo and behold, look at what's come from it at the end of it now, which we're still trying to battle to get on an even keel to try and, firstly to stay in the league, which has been our issue, not simply try and improve and get to a level of European football and thinking that Everton could get into a Champions League fight, perhaps. Who knows? I don't think it'll happen in our lifetime, to be honest with you, because that's how far back it went. And these decisions that are going against the Premier League itself shows you how weak the Premier League actually is. You've got Masters and all that, the corruption stuff that everybody's referred to, and what we got with the points. There doesn't seem to be a way in which the Premier League can put their foot on the ground and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. They can make rules going forward, but there are various clubs, each of which we mentioned, that have voted in favour of City. Ourselves has done so because, well, we just hate the Premier League, to put it bluntly. But that decision means that nobody can erase what City have gone and done at a point where nobody wanted them to do it.
Yeah.
So when's the first time they won the league? 2013, I think. Well, they started getting the money in a lot earlier than that, didn't they? When
about 2008, 9, wasn't it? Something like that. 2009.
I think they sort of had two sways of it, wasn't he? When the first time Sven went in, and that was the owner that spent a load of money and looked like they were going to completely go.
That was the tie fellow, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then that's when Saudi came in after that, and then it just became ridiculous then, didn't it?
Yeah.
You go back to things then, and that's where the Premier League, should have always been ashamed of themselves, the way in which it's governed football. There's no governance around football whatsoever, really, and they've changed things now. But far too late to do these things. They've made a load of, and again, talking to Patrick Rich a few weeks ago, it was startling how much they've changed things just far too late. You can't go now and say, all right, City, people are talking about you can relegate them, you can deduct the previous titles. That's never going to happen. As much as Liverpool fans, any of them listening to this, or Liverpool fans were outraged, which I'm pretty sure they would have been today when this results come through, they're going to be saying, "Oh, this is so unfair. City, a gang of corrupt bastards, and all that." Which, to me, detriment. I actually agree with them. They're absolutely right. It's more bitter for them because half of them they would have been winning titles and competitions and things. But you can't go and erase that as much as the Premier League would probably want to. You can't get rid of over a decade's worth of history when you could have done this initially. You could have set the ground initially so none of this happened. It might well have happened in terms of, look, when it wasn't like this, when we were skint under Bill Kenwright, things were an issue then, but not to this scale. This is something that is astronomical that we're not able to go and change. And like I say, go back to it's quite depressing to say so, but I think we asked the question on Mailbag, didn't we, a couple of months ago? Do you think Everton will win a trophy in your lifetime?
Yeah.
That question quickly changed from years ago. Where do you think Everton will ever win the title again? The reason why we're able to talk about it and laugh about it and it feel really sad is there's a chance you can say Everton are going to ever win a Premier League title again. And that's the extent at which football is these days with the competition. It's sickening. It makes you feel like shite when you go to a game. If you think about it too much, like we have now. I mean, I'm on my holidays now and I feel like shit because you've spoke about this less. It's all right. It's all right. It is the top of the ladder with all this, isn't it? So, but again, I think on a side that's not so much positive for us, but it shows you how important it is, as it ever was, to stay in the Premier League. But this is the highest it's ever been. This is the top of a scale that you need to stay there, or you are gone. You are gone. And I used to say this is a bit of a notion that if Everton ever get relegated, Everton won't come back up. I could see Everton dropping a few divisions if Everton were to get relegated to the Championship. Such was the financial issues with the club. And again, it just emphasises the importance we need to stay in this division when we go to Bramley-Moore.
Yeah, and hopefully have owners who actually know what to do with the club. Right, so we pick things up a bit and have little arguments about the weekend's game.
If you want to.
Go on, let's go for it. So, I don't know, we'll take everything in order. The first penalty that Newcastle got, really strange one for me because no one appealed for it. Did they? It just went out for a goal kick. No one appealed. The goal kick I think the goal kick had been taken, hadn't it? And then it went through VAR check. I mean, it was a penalty.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think the reason anybody appealed to it was because the ball was nowhere near where it actually happened. And that's what infuriates me about how much of a dickhead Tarkowski was in that game, Les.
Yeah.
I still can't believe, when I can see it repeatedly, don't you, on social media, I can't believe somebody of his experience or any professional footballer does what he went and did in that game. As soon as he did it, as soon as I seen the replay, I was like, get him off. Take him. If Everton were able to, I know you've got O'Brien there, it remains to be seen how good he is for us. But he's 23 years old and barely played a game for us, so you wouldn't necessarily want to do that because he's still our captain and whatnot. And I tell you what, if we had an option on that bench, I'd have took him off straight away.
It was ridiculous.
That was. Do you know? I'm trying to think now off the top of my head quite quickly what I'm most angry about with things Everton have done, and there are multiple things, aren't there? Like probably week by week that you'd say one of our players has done. But I'm struggling to think of something that was worse than watching what he went and did there. Do you know, it's hard to come out with questions, with answers that refer to him as not being an absolute gobshite doing that.
It was stupid. It was inexcusable and inexplicable, really. Yeah. But one thing I will say is, 4 hours before that, the Premier League, the referees had ruled the who did Liverpool play? Palace. Palace never got a penalty because basically what Van Dijk didn't affect the passage of play. So they were basically saying, well, that player would never have got to the ball anyway, so what does it matter? So if that's a consideration, what did it matter that he threw him to the floor? Because Tonali was never going to get to the ball. So they just dig themselves a hole all the time. I agree, it was a penalty. It was a stupid thing to do. But when the referees are throwing in this extra layer of complication as to, well, would he have got the ball anyway? That shouldn't matter. If the ball's going to the near post and you punch someone on the far post, that's a penalty and they're sending off. Just, it doesn't matter where the ball is, does it? So I just don't know why they added that extra layer. But under that rule, it shouldn't have been a penalty.
No, so you can't do it twice. You can't do it in one game and then not do it on the other. If it was the other way around, look, we'd all be sitting here buzzing with me saying, we got away with one there, and as it happens, Tarkowski looks like a bit of a hero because Anthony Gordon went on and missed the pen, and it was sort of like something that always boosts your side, isn't it, when somebody misses a penalty? But I tell you what, like, I've no idea what his thoughts are when when a ball comes in and you do see a lot of physical contact between players and defenders, attackers, whatever. Everyone's trying to rag each other and all that. And I think since VAR, which should have been something to its credit, obviously it hasn't been, is to be able to identify where these have been unfair to either defender or somebody who's trying to win the ball, i.e. someone's trying to jump up and head to the ball and someone's pulling them down. Should be a penalty, should be a free kick the other way. It's that situation, Les, as well, where the stakes come down when it's in the middle of the pitch. When it's for a penalty, it's right up there, as in, like, you need to do something more than you would on the pitch itself outside of the box in order to get what is a penalty. That's done my head in. You'll see that from amateur football. That sort of thing really gets on you, that you've got a referee that thinks, you know what, I need to think a little bit more decisive over whether that's a penalty or not than I would do if it just blow me whistle and say, yeah, that's a free kick in the middle. No one thinks anything of it. You crack on with the game. What Tarkowski does there when that ball's nowhere near them is, how much that could cost you? How much that could cost us? Had he gone and scored that, which he probably should have, anyone should score a penalty. For us to get away with that, I mean, he and himself there, I mean, he needs to redeem that. What I mentioned, that you're talking about a player who's an England international footballer. He was picked in squads. He's our captain. That he should be ashamed of himself there. And I don't know. I didn't see Sean Dyche's post match. Did he? I mean, I presume he didn't hammer him because I've not seen it in the news.
I've not seen. I've not heard anything. So
he's. I mean, I increasingly start to think Sean Dyche is a bit of an idiot myself anyway, the way in which he conducts himself. Ever since earlier this season, when he started blaming fans, you started thinking, you're moving closer to the door where everyone wants you out there, mate. But, to get away in general with the draw, I mean, I know the thing we've dodged around a little bit is the one that the other so-called, what should have been a penalty, which...
Should we go on to that? Should we go on to that now?
Go on.
Right, I think it was a penalty. I know you don't. I think it was a penalty.
Of course you did.
And this is why. Right. So, Calvert-Lewin's gone to kick the ball and he's kicked the back of Dan Burns' leg. Dan Burns put his leg out to play the ball, hasn't played the ball, and he's impeded the man. Now, bear with me. If you're running down the wing, and if you're a winger running down the wing and the fullback goes to make a tackle, sticks his leg to get the ball in front of yours, doesn't get the ball and you go flying over his leg, it's a free kick. If you just run into a player on the pitch it's a free kick to the player you've run into. If you run into a player who stepped in your way, it's a free kick to you because it's obstruction. Do you see what I mean? So the fact that he's put his body in front of where Calvert-Lewin's going, that's an infringement by Dan Burn because he's not got the ball. You can't just. It's like an obstruction, isn't it? So it would never be obstruction but that's essentially what he's done. He's put his body in the way of the ball, hasn't got the ball, and he's impeded what the attacking player is going to do.
Where I differ with that is what you've explained there are perfect examples of where you should win a free kick, or where you probably would win a free kick. And it's going back to referring to what we said there.
Yeah.
You need to have a higher stake in terms of winning a penalty than you do when it's on the pitch itself. The rest of the pitch there, it's nowhere near the penalty area. I get that, and I haven't thought of it that way, so I think that's an excellent point. My rebuttal to that would be, was Dominic Calvert-Lewin going to have the ball if that never happened? I don't think he was in a position, and you hear this before when you see various things happen towards the box, or when you see players who should get an immediate red card if they've prevented a goal scoring opportunity. Has that player had that ball in control? Now, do you think Calvert-Lewin had that in control? If Dan Burn weren't there or was coming in from a different angle, do you think Calvert-Lewin had that ball in control?
It didn't, but I think he'd have connected with it. I think he'd have got his shot away.
So fair enough. So my response to that is, if you're a central defender there, what are you supposed to do if you're in your 6-yard box, which it was just outside the 6-yard box? First of all, he's moving away from goal. So I don't know. I disagree with you saying he'd get a shot away. Might well go and control the ball. You're not preventing a shot on goal, I don't think.
Okay.
In which just a guy should have scored anyway. We shouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah, we can both agree on that. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's not go that way. I'm sorry I mentioned that now. To be honest with you, that just completely deterred the argument we're having here. But I think, and at the time I said this, and I've watched it so many times again, and again I've been slated about it, but I repeat what I said. As a central defender, and he's put his foot down with no contact to Calvert-Lewin. Can we agree with that?
Yeah.
So he's put his foot down where he's allowed to, in front of Calvert-Lewin. What can he get out of there? What is he supposed to do when you've got our player who's tried to strike the ball by kicking him, who's in front of him? So there's no entitlement to who wins a football. Well, my point is that becomes somewhat of a 50-50 for me, because they're both trying to get the ball. One of them gets the foot in front of the other. The other one tries to strike it and in turn hits that lad's leg. I don't know how hitting that lad's leg determines that it's a penalty, is essentially what I'm saying. And motor point I made against Warren, and Warren defended me in this, and probably rightly so. I'm taking the perspective of why it wasn't given without me thinking that it's an Everton pen. And that's what people have slated me about, and I hope they listen to me saying this. I'm not saying it because I don't think it was a penalty just because it's Everton and it's corruption because it's the referee, Pawson and all that crap. I'm talking about if I'm a referee and I look like that, which he did, went and looked at it and all that. I think he's a bad dickhead. Love for him to give us a penalty. I'm more explaining the reason why that doesn't get given. And if you listen to Jagielka and Izzy Christiansen after the game with Kelly Cates, he said, I think he perfectly said this, that if you're a defender, you'd be screaming your head off that that's not even look like a penalty, because you've established putting your foot towards the ball before the other player, and you've done that legally. He puts his foot there before he's kicked. So when he's kicked, it's a foul. That's one half of it. The other half is, if you're the striker who's been taken down because the defender's in front of you while you're trying to kick the ball, then you'd be fuming it's not being given as a pen. I get that, but I'm leaning towards why it wasn't given as one. So I hope you get what our listeners do.
No, I understand what I mean.
Yeah,
I do, and I can't see that side of it. I think the overriding thing for me is, as a defender, if you're doing that in the box, if you're going in like that, you've got to get the ball for me. And he didn't get the ball.
Is that not the same for DCL though?
No, I don't think it is.
Does that become irrelevant?
I think because it's a striker and a defender, I think as a defender making a challenge in the box, you've got to get the ball. You've got to. And if you don't and impede the striker, it's a foul. That's how I see it. It might be a little bit.
I suppose where I accept what you're saying is it sort of refers to what we were on about there with Tarkowski and giving them a penalty.
Yeah.
Regardless of where the ball is, he's fouled the player. So I guess our debate then becomes: it
is who fouled who, isn't it? Really,
the ball itself becomes irrelevant. Is essentially what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the defender's got to win it.
The other one.
But yeah, we could have this debate for days. We didn't get it. What did you think overall? Because I was listening to post match with Warren, and although Newcastle had a lot of possession, obviously, they did only have 3 shots on target, and I don't think at any point in that game I felt these could go on and score and batter us here. I didn't feel threatened by them at all. And there's been a lot of Everton games under Dijk like that, whereby we've had none of the ball, but then the away team haven't done much. I was dead surprised because I thought that midfield would get overrun. I think it helped that Tonali had a bit of a stinker. I thought he was crap all game, and he was pretty anonymous. But I just thought that midfield could get overrun. I thought he was playing into their hands a bit because he was doing that defender narrow as well, and they were getting a little bit of action out on the wings where they could get crosses in. I don't think they made the most of it, to be honest. I didn't think they were great. But yeah, I think a draw was a fair result, and I never really felt under any threat from
them. I felt that it was coming more so than creating the opportunities. Les, I felt that their midfield, and it was a massive issue we spoke about last week. Can't remember what pod it was, where Dijk should feel really naive if he didn't put the exact amount of players they had in their midfield area. We essentially did or didn't at times. Us 2 against their 3, you're only asking for trouble.
Yeah,
I thought I've seen that at times. When we can sit here and talk all day about what Dijk has set up there, but also you have to look at who's on the pitch and essentially played like they should have been and done the job that they were asked to do. At mixed times, Decore's been doing my head in as well. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with him anymore, to be honest with you. And I felt that it was coming from them. No immediate, what you said. They had 3 shots on target. Pickford didn't have to do much other than the penalty. I mean, one of those shots on target was the penalty.
Yeah. I was actually surprised that we had 2. I can't even remember them. I don't know what the other one was.
The class on target when someone's had a shot and it gets deflected out for the corner.
Oh yeah, that's true. Certainly wasn't one of Ghana Gay's.
Oh no, that mate, that would trouble me for long. This game, I think all season long it'll be. When you get those games. How you don't see a game so quickly, and I think we lack time in wondering. Like it's almost like the lads on the pitch there are thinking, do you know what, we're going to concede a goal here, because it looked like they had that level of possession. If you're obviously they're going to be on their own side, but if you were to speak to like a genuine Newcastle fan, they would say that they've come away from there and they should have got 3 points. I tend to agree with that, but in a different way from saying, they missed some chances there, because they didn't, but they got into positions, and this is where I'm going to say that James Garner played his best game in an Everton shirt by an absolute mile. Not just the fact that he's not a right back, but the fact that he dealt with anything in and around him, and they did try to expose him. They did try and put it that side. You had Joe Linton go on that side. Gordon would go out there every few times. They look like, again, left wing, full back there, trying to go past them. I thought he was magnificent as a right back, a makeshift one as well, which puts him even higher in how good he played, in my opinion.
Yeah,
he was fine that side. Ashley Young again, nothing wrong with him for the third game running. Tarkowski, if you decide, Michael Keane was fine, which he's never going to ever get any praise. If he had the game of his life, he wouldn't get any praise for many people would say rightly so. Going the other way, I mean, it was just back to type with us, wasn't it? Really, there wasn't anything that I looked at. So he tried to do something here. It felt like that was bog standard. And again, I refer to the fact when we've played games, it's really easy for your opposition to look at how Everton play and try and deal with it. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you're going to. But I think in terms of setting up, it's pretty obvious the way Everton are going to structure.
Yeah, I think that game as well was the classic example of the fact that Everton can't have both. So we defended well in that game for the whole game.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
couldn't do anything up front. And in previous games, you scored 2 and conceded 3 because we can score, but we can't defend. And it's just frustrating, isn't it? I don't see what the manager could do any different in the setup. It just seems to be a thing that we're going to have one or the other. That's it. Weird.
Do you know what, Les? You've epitomised Everton as a football club on the pitch. That's exactly what we are. You can refer to the 2 games where we've let goals slip, the Bournemouth one and the Villa one. Everton go 2-0 up in any game. Given the way Sean Dyche has been hired as an Everton manager not to concede goals, Everton should piss those 2 games, not for the sake of just being 2-0 up, but for the sake of thinking, you know what? And if we go 1-0 up in games, Everton should see it out in the majority of them.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what you think of the defenders, we've got a manager, and he was a centre-back himself, by the way, before he ever became a football manager. Why can't he, put those 2 things together? Why can't they come out as the same thing? So many times I've watched us, big portions of games, I thought we looked really good going forward. Leicester, Villa, Bournemouth. Most games we played this season, Everton have looked really sharp going forward. Missed the cutting edge, yes, because we know that. You speak all day about what we're missing up front. It's Calvert-Lewin. Can he finish? Can he not? That's generally how we score goals or how we don't score goals. Dijk, completely different entity on his own. Love the lad already. Want to see him every single game. I want to see him on the ball for 90 minutes of a game. He looks like someone, dare to say it, who Everton don't keep for long if people spot that he's doing that every week. I hate to say something like that, but I think it's pretty true when you see that with players. How that converts to not being able to cope with the game defensively. And what I would add to that, Les, is that we never seem to have an issue of having less of the ball than the opponents. Sean Dyche has built his management on having less possession, let's be honest. And Everton have been comfortable for it. That's how Everton stayed up last season. Games we've won, we've had less, every game we have has less possession than the opponent. I can't think of any where we've dominated games with the ball on our feet. And the one positive I'll say from that is Sean Dyche utilises that to Everton's positivity. Why that can't be done on both ends of the pitch is something that needs addressing a lot. And I think that's why it's a big part of Sean Dyche, why he'll never, I don't know if it was yourself or it was Warren who said, Sean Dyche will never manage a bigger club than Everton. Not in terms of what we'd all say about the Gando team. He would not manage a better club than Everton in regards to a Premier League side that's going to finish better off than Everton. I don't think that's possible, which in turn means that that's how limited he is to what he can actually manage in games. We should have had at least 6 more points, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's got this, just before we wrap up here, he's got this thing, hasn't he, where it's like his oversimplistic analysis is keep it out of that end, put it in that end. Basically, you can sort of you can sort of use that to say don't have any position this end, have all the possession that end. So you don't want your defenders fanning about with the ball and keeping possession because that's just asking for trouble. But your forwards, you don't want them just like giving it away straight away. And, you want your forwards to keep hold of the ball. And I think that's something we've not done so well at times is like when it gets into that final third, it breaks down a lot, doesn't it?
I was just going to say, it's. I think we lack the ability to be able to have 10 lads who've all really played well together. There's so many in a game where I'm looking like, you know what, he did really well, Dijk does well. I think you can assume that that's going to happen, and he's going to be our main outlet, getting the ball on either side of the pitch. But I've spoken there at the start about Takore. Really, I have serious issues watching that lad play football because he looks like he's stunk the place out now for overdue, shall we say, because obviously you can't play amazingly well 38 games a season, but for a good while now he's looked like he's had there's problems with him, not only in the performance but also the position in which he plays. And I think he'd probably say that, if you were to fly on the wall there, he'd admit to being somebody who's been told to do a job that's not his forte. I get that. Good players do that. Good players do that. That's probably what separates him playing for Everton and him playing for the side that is in a better position than Everton. There's him. Calvert-Lewin will always remain a mixed subject for everybody. And Mangala as well. I mean, I think he lacks a little bit of discipline. Sometimes he looks really, really good. But other times, and I think somebody else he would say, if you heard him behind closed doors, would be, what support have I got in and around me? And I thought when Gay got on, we felt like we got a real foothold in the game, really. I thought he was really good when he came on. Aside from the fact that I give him 0 out of 10 for the chance he missed, and also having a shot on goal that he nearly breaks your nose with at your end of the pitch when he's shooting towards the Gladys Street, by the way. But there's stuff like that. McNeil as well disappointed me quite a lot.
Yeah, he was. I think maybe
he just wasn't involved.
I don't know if he just defended well in that regard, that McNeil didn't get a sniff and Dijk wasn't in the game much either, was he? I think they did actually do a good job on them two, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go back, I'm going to finish now, but I'd go back and ask you, do you think that's a point gained?
Yeah, I do. I think because of where Newcastle are and also the defence we put out. I mean, I know they had Callum Wilson and Isaac missing, who probably would have made a huge difference to them, to be fair. I just think on the limitations with the team we had, the fact that we've conceded so many goals with that back four already this season. I think to get a 0-0 draw out of that it's a good result. And I also think the way it ended with Gordon just made it like a really good result. It was just nice that the game essentially hit. I mean, it would have been lovely to get 3 points, but the fact that the game has been lost by them because he took a penalty that he may not have taken on another day, and fucked it because it was a terrible penalty, and Pickford saved it, was just brilliant.
Yeah, it was. It was obviously coming away from it. The most important moment of the game, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For us to go and get a point, that was why, because we didn't look like we were going to score apart from the penalty opportunity, which we debated ourselves.
Although that,
as well.
That Decore header was great.
Oh, it was, yeah. And
that cross from Garner and that header was brilliant, but he was like easy offside. But that's Decore, isn't it?
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, he could do something like that. Do you know what it reminds me of? Just on a tangent a bit. Do you remember Paulo One Shot?
Yeah. Yes.
I remember he scored one of the best goals I've seen at Old Trafford, where he just took the piss out of about 5 or 6 players and slots it home. Then other games you'd look at him and think, is that Beto? It looked like he wasn't a footballer at times, but he'd do something that you're like, how on earth has he done that, and surprise everybody by going to do it? It feels that way at times with Decore. I'm like, he's fast as well. He missed that one-on-one, didn't he, against Palace? He just times. Yeah. I don't know what I think of, like, sometimes it looks a little bit brainless. Because don't get me wrong, if you were to go back to his Everton career, at one point he's pretty much saved us on the last day of the season. Yeah. He's been a really positive player. He scored a lot of goals for us, which have been essential in games. But it's that kind of player that edges towards, in his 30s, towards the end of an Everton career, where you're like, probably should have gone a year earlier, probably should have been, thanks Everton, but it's time for me to move on. I'm not going on about retirement because he's far too young to retire. But if you get what I mean, I get that feeling about him most of the time. And it doesn't seem like there's an alternative to that, Les, either, which is the big problem that it's been for many years, hasn't it, with every player that's been struggling.
And I do think, just to your point on him playing further back, that takes out the biggest part of his game. The fact that if he is in the box, he can score from pretty much nothing. And sort of has done, he does get in good positions.
Well, how can that take the... What he must be working on in training there to have Decore playing a deeper role. I don't know where Sean Dyche is seeing that from, other than if he's doing in training, he's ripping everyone apart because he's playing in a deeper role and he looks like the best central midfielder that we've ever had. Then that's when you slot him in. But I'm pretty certain when you see Decore in training, he's not going to be there looking like he's Zidane. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to do that. And more to the point, just a quick one. I can't believe that Irabunam's been on the bench for the last 2 games. I have no idea why that is. Because firstly, what we just referred to, I put him in ahead of Decore if you've got Decore wanting to play as a deep midfield role. And then Adjusagay's there as well. So if you're thinking of doing that and having that as the only rules you've got with Decore is to play him deep, he should be second or third choice to actually start in games. If you're playing him in and around that 10 area where he's moved McNeil to, I don't see a place in the first 11 for him.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. I do feel like his time in the team now should be a bit more limited and sort of brought on as another option. But he did sort of, he's given us that moment against Bournemouth that kept us up, and he gave us the Martin Keown, Ruud van Nistelrooy moment almost when he jumped in front of Anthony Gordon after he missed that penalty, which was absolutely.
It was just missing. It was just missing the slap on his head, wasn't it?
That's all it needed. It was so close, but it looked good. Right, Dave. We will leave it there. You go and see.
There was one thing, wasn't there? The byline is on Wednesday this week.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I forgot to do my housekeeping. Yeah. So yeah, as you said, the byline is coming. Yeah, Matt will kill me for that. The byline will not be out on Tuesday now. It will be out on Wednesday. Because Paddy Boylan's a busy man, isn't he? That's all it is.
It is, yeah. He generally doesn't have an hour to spare, does he, for people these days? So,
he's a tough lad to get hold of, but I'm sure
clearly chosen something else for an hour. He's probably having a coffee or something, isn't he?
He'll be doing something lovely, yeah, without a doubt.
He'll be sat outside some posh coffee, and look like a Frenchman. And you walk past and think, why is Paddy Boylan there? Not doing byline today. Guarantee you that's what he'll be doing tomorrow morning.
Exactly, but I think it'll be worth the wait anyway. It'll be worth the wait on Wednesday, and we might have some other news coming up, which we'll tell you about another time. We'll keep you hanging with that one. We'll leave it there. So yeah, if you're listening on podcast, leave a review. Share it far and wide if you've liked the show. If you're watching on YouTube, again, subscribe, leave a comment. I always try and reply, and I do appreciate that little community we're building up there. Otherwise, it's a free weekend, but we'll still have loads of stuff coming up. Enjoy the rest of your week. Dave, enjoy the rest of your holiday, and we will catch you next time. Up the toffees.